and I'm with Limerick School of Art and Design. I'm currently doing my MA, and my area of focus is an artistic investigation into culture of folklore, superstition and oral storytelling contemporary art practice. And today I've decided to look at, through the comparison of authentic contemporary art practice and folklore, can a link be found between personal identity and the sinister predatory characters in Irish fairy lore. Now, within this I'll be looking at contemporary art practice, the authentic fairy lore and the cautionary tale, as well as the banshee versus paranormal activity linked with our death and how we identify ourselves within our death system. Now, this paper is an artistic investigation that analyses death and burials in Irish fairy lore through fine art responses drawn from my own practice and that of Irish ethnographic artists such as Michael Fortune. I will explore specific fairy tales which depict the Gothic and forewarnings of death through characters such as the banshee and rituals surrounding the fairy funeral. Ireland has a long history of storytelling cautionary fairy tales, which have been documented in collections by folklorist Edmund Linehan. This paper examines analysis of folklore by Marina Warner and the effect these findings, as well as the fairy tales themselves, have on fine art practice. Through this paper I will highlight Christian and pagan ideals of death and evil and their direct associations with Irish fairies. This argument is also formulated that there are sinister fairy tales and they are still relevant in modern fairy tales and society today, and authentic stories of the banshee are echoed in contemporary narratives and in the paranormal. This paper focuses on a small element of fairy lore within the body of my research for my MA. As my MA is an artistic investigation into folklore, superstition and oral storytelling through contemporary art practice, the inquiry is based on a balance between fine art practice and the theory that I do look at. I am still at an exploratory stage of my research, so I do welcome any comments or any ideas that you may have. The subject matter of the other and evil has been a common theme in my work throughout my degree and my MA. My research has ranged from fairy tales of popular culture, for example, Alice in Wonderland and The Wizard of Oz, and that goes right through up to Irish fairy lore. Although I have a BA in printmaking, my studio methods vary from craftwork, printmaking, stitching, etc. These are some of my images here now. Through this research, I've developed an interest in malevolent and evil Irish fairy lore, in particular cautionary tales. This has resulted in an open narrative within my artwork, which allows the audience to interpret the work in a multitude of ways. The current series of work which I have embarked on highlights the Gothic elements in our fairy lore. These authentic drawings of animal skeletal structures and photography is my response to stories of the banshee. By focusing on the abstract or the cast-offs that are created by death, I'm emphasising on the foreboding implications of the hag's whale. So you'll see here, I use different skeletal forms, for example, the cow's head and jaw bones to link back to our dairy farming and the links to death and the superstition surrounding pishogues and other elements within that. Other artists, such as Michael Fortune, resonate with my own ethnographic work practice. Fortune's piece, The Banshee Lives in the Handball Alley, is a unique piece that can function in either a fine art gallery or a community archive. This document is an inside view of the cautionary tale from a child's point of view, highlighting the hushed fear of the predatory banshee. Fortune's collected interviews from school children from the island and Myros in Limerick City in association with artists such as Aileen Lambert. This piece had appeared in Eva in 2004 and 2005. And this is, they just showed a small example of the dialogues which they collected. The Ireland of the early 20th century was largely community orientated. With the lack of electronic amenities and poor roads deterring long journeys, they looked to the community to fill this void. This came in the form of storytellers that travelled from house to house at night, reciting menacing tales from their parents before them. The fairies, or the good people, were held in high regard in authentic Irish lore. These figures were often referred to with reverence and were often called not fairies, but the good people. These cautionary tales were filled with warning, instructing the listener not to make the same mistakes as individuals in the tales. Themes which appear often in these stories are those of men and women being enticed by the fairies to help them with their burials. Some accounts state that the fairy, in order for them to get on with their burials, they needed a human to participate. The main objective of these accounts were to teach the communities how to deal with the good people in a fashion that would not offend them, thus not lead the individual to their demise. These warnings were taken in earnest by the community, in turn passing their forewarnings to other villages in the area. Oftentimes, the individuals in question would not venture into the night for the fear of encountering the good people. Folklore theories such as Marina Warner's research has highlighted the process of warnings within fairy tales as one of the main functions of storytelling. This is abundantly clear when folklore collections are analysed, such as Edmund Linehan's collection. Linehan is a native of West Limerick and has published many books featuring the fairy as a malevolent predator from the rural vernacular. Linehan's style is unobtrusive and endeavours to portray the true voice of the oral storyteller. When we think of folklore, we must ask ourselves, what is its function today? When evaluating stories of the fairy woman or the banshee, it is clear that a legend is fundamental to the foundations of our heritage. O'Sullivan or Max have claimed this death messenger as their own unique identification of oneself. This place has prospered through the ages, and this practice is a deeper sense of belonging for these families within Irish culture. This folk tradition binds together the generations at home and abroad, making their roots deeper. In this instance, Anne Williams' reference is quite apt: Gothic plots are family plots. Within this tradition, each family's archive depicts a display of a number of different motives or motifs that the fairy woman describes, yet again creating a creature that is unique within an already niche superstition. Amidst these archives there are three key legends: the comb legend, the imprint of the banshee's 5 fingers, and the shirt legend. Each tale signifies how different families identify their banshee. The most prominent of these legends is the tale of the comb. The comb is the most precious belonging of the banshee, and the old hag is often found sitting by the road combing her long grey hair. This object can easily become a violent instrument if the fairy woman is provoked or mocked, throwing the comb at her target, oftentimes with a fatal outcome. Publications such as Ireland's Own and the Wexford People have documented such stories. In the Wexford People on 16th July 76, the following tale was published. Mr. Hayes submits that a drunken took the comb from the bow, or in this case the banshee's hand, in the Black Cow in November. I was then put supernaturally up on a windowsill, where he remained with the comb glued to his hand for 48 hours. It was then taken out of his hand at 12 midnight, 2 nights later, and returned to the bow by means of iron tongs. Only then was he restored to the ground and the bosom of his family. When the fire brigade tried to get him down, the bow was said to have posed an invisible wall around him. This cautionary tale highlights a tradition which was performed all over the country to protect oneself from the bow. The use of these tongs caused the tradition of the time surrounding fire. Catholic belief of 1800s was to use fire to purge evil and protect their families from the fairies and other pagan evils. This cautionary tale generates hysteria among the rural community. The earliest recorded cautionary statement can be found in 19th century by the text John Keane. Better for you to shoot your own mother than fire at the banshee anyhow. Let her alone while she lets you alone, for an hour's look never shone on anyone that had molested the banshee. Some records of the comb legend document the fairy woman leaving an imprint of her hand on her ridiculer, or the instrument he uses to pass the comb, usually under the door of the home. One example would be Thomas O'Hare's uncle was coming home late from his corda that night, and it was bright night. The moon was high in the sky. Outside his home was a green flag, and the flag is there to this day. When he was coming in near his house, didn't he see the woman on his green flag? He thought that it was some neighbouring woman there, and that it was how she was trying to knock a start out of him. Over he goes, and he clamps his hand on her shoulder. The very minute he did, God bless us all, save us, may everyone be well where it is told, she raised her hand and caught him by the crown of the head and lifted him up off the road, and she hit him down against the ground again, but she did not kill him. He got a terrible fright. And may God bless us and save us all, when he got up in the morning, the print of her 5 fingers was on the top of his head, and his hair had turned as white as snow from the death of the fright. Each version of this tale portrays the same basic story. A man is out walking late one night. He comes upon a lone woman, which he in turn accosts. The cautionary element here appears to be a deterrent for young men to approach women in the dead of night, as they may be the wicked banshee. The third and final legend involves the banshee washing a shirt in the stream. Some tales depict the death messenger washing bloody clothes, sometimes accompanied by the woman which had been died in the Vyers family. Again, these folk tales show the banshee being accosted or mocked by a man, usually resulting in the hag's vengeance. This account was found in County Galway in 54. A man who was going into Montague one night for a wake or a dance, he heard the banshee washing, beetling away with a beetle. Every woman that time had a beetle. There was no such things as lux at the time. He asked her if she was washing his shirt for the devil, but I thought it was the wake he was going. But he sat down near the closed door of the wake. She put her hand in the closed door and she took it from him, his shirt. She went off with it, and she came back when it was washed, and she threw it in his face because he was making fun of her. It was in mockery that he asked her to wash his shirt. Yes, without a doubt. If he had let her pass without bothering her, she would not have bothered him. The devil she would. Other variations tell of the banshee washing by the riverside or lake, and she is offended by a young man. In other retellings, she rips the clothes off her offender or even rips at his hair. These stories once again reinforce honour morals, which must be obtained by young men towards women. Beware of mocking or approaching unwilling females, or you will pay the price of the banshee. This vilification of the banshee calls upon Barbara Creed's feminine archetypes, woman as life and death. Creed's analysis, woman as monster through feminist theory, argues that horror fiction is awash with female monsters. Creed's analysis and her title, Monstrous Feminine, emphasises characters such as the banshee appears more gothic due to her gender. I have used the term monstrous feminine, she says, as the term female monster, implying a small reversal of the male monster. The reason why the monstrous feminine horrifies her audience are quite different from the reasons why the male monster horrifies his audience. A new term is needed to specify these differences. As well as all other stereotypes of the female, from virgin to whore, she is defined in terms of her sexuality. The phrase monstrous feminine emphasises the importance of gender in the construction of her monstrosity. Now, conclusively, the countless descriptions of the monstrous fairy woman depicts a ghostly figure which oftentimes manifests itself with the sound rather than showing herself. Wails, cries and blood-curdling screams are all trademarks of her presence. There are striking similarities between the legend of the banshee and contemporary tales of paranormal activity. But in the Death Messenger bringing foreboding news or paranormal activity, the tales are feared and taken in reverence by the community, domestic and worldwide. Fear symbols of death can still be found in Ireland today. An apt example of this would be Charleville Castle in County Offaly. This castle offers a rich archive of paranormal activity. One of the most significant spirits cases is a child called Harriet, who died on the day of her 8th birthday. This unfortunate child, who had lost her family before her, fell to her death from the top of a staircase a few steps from her nursery. Harriet still frequents this staircase today, making her presence known through gentle caresses or quiet trills of her laughter wafting down the hall. Her presence in Charleville Castle offers a modern link to our female bearers of death, creating a significant contrast between death in youth, starkly opposed by the wailing hag. This paper had offered today an artistic investigation that analyses predatory figures in Irish fairy lore through fine art responses drawn from my own work and that of other ethnographical artists such as Michael Fortune. I discussed cautionary fairy tales which depict the banshee. This investigation highlighted the connections between fairy lore and contemporary paranormal stories. My inquiry has opened many more avenues within my research, which I will be exploring through my artistic practice, to answer questions such as, what does the banshee have for generations to come? Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Marian. And our final paper now of